Hey friends, it's Kristen here. I wanted to share with you guys sheet pan meals because they are so easy, so delicious, and can be very budget friendly, especially if you're like me. I kind of do these when it's a clean out the refrigerator kind of night where I might have some protein that I had thawed and just hadn't used yet. It's time to use it up. And then you kind of have a mismatch of vegetables that you can add to it and make a delicious meal. The other thing I like about sheet pan meals is one pan is dirty and super easy to clean up. Instead of getting something dirty for the meat, something dirty for the vegetables, it all goes on one. I especially like to cook my sheet pan meals on Stoneware. This is the large bar pan, or what we call the stone bar pan now. And what's really nice about cooking on Stoneware is that it's gonna just cook everything very evenly. Your vegetables are gonna be roasted, which means you're gonna get like a little bit of a crust on the bottom and on the top. The meat's gonna have a little bit of a crust on it, but be so tender and juicy on the inside. And again, the large size has enough space for everything on the meal. Now, maybe you're cooking for a smaller family, say just one or two. You might want to look into one of the smaller sizes of the bar pan. So there's a small and a medium as well. And the reason I suggest that is when you're cooking on Stoneware, you really want to make sure that you're covering at least 2/3 of the pan with some food on it. If I were to cook just this pork tenderloin as is, I run the risk of cracking the stone. And the reason is it doesn't do as well with a temperature inversion, meaning maybe that's not even the right word, but anyway, but basically where this pork is, even though it's thawed, it's very, very cold, and because it's a really thick piece of meat, it's gonna stay cold there, but the rest of the pan is gonna get really, really hot. So you got a hot pan with a cold center, and it's just gonna cause it to break. But if you put your vegetables or potatoes or something else around and you're covering more of the surface, it's gonna keep the whole thing cooking much more evenly. And so number one, you're getting your meal cooked, but number two, you're protecting your stoneware that it's not gonna break. Now, of course, sheet pan meals can also be done on sheet pans, and we have a great set of metal pans as well. So if you're more of the metal pan person versus stoneware, feel free to do the same thing on your metal pan. So as I said, you can do any protein. There are some recipe starters for you in the party, but I've just got a pork tenderloin here. I'm going to, and again, it's thawed. I do not recommend doing frozen just because it's going to take longer to cook than the sides, and especially if you're on stoneware, you're going to really run into a problem with the stone possibly breaking. But I'm going to put just a little bit of olive oil on here, and I'm going to kind of spread that out. And the oil really is just to get the seasoning to stick. I mean, there's really, if you don't want the oil, you can certainly leave that out, but I'm gonna go ahead and add that. And then of course, I just like to salt and pepper everything, so I'm gonna just do a nice, and this is a fairly thick cut of meat, so I'm gonna do quite a bit just because we want the flavors to soak into that meat. And I'm gonna go ahead and add, because it's fall and I'm thinking fall flavors, I'm gonna do the rosemary herb seasoning on here, which is, again, you can use it year round, but to me, it just speaks of fall. And I like to do what's called no naked meat. So I'm gonna be pretty liberal with this, and I'm gonna go ahead and cover the entire top, which again is gonna kind of crust, be like a rosemary encrusted pork tenderloin. And I like garlic, so we're gonna add a little bit of garlic, and this is the garlic seasoning from Pampered Chef as well. So this is just gonna make a delicious crust on our food. So that's ready. Now we're gonna go ahead and get some vegetables cut, and we have, of course, just a knife works great, but I am all about how fast and how fun can I have what I am cooking, and that's why I really like this guy. It's called the Rapid Prep Mandolin. It actually, between these two dials here, has 24 different settings. So no matter how thick or thin you want your slices, how thick or thin you want like a fry cut or a julienne or a matchstick, you can do it with this. And the other thing I like about it is it does soft vegetables. So if you needed to cut mushrooms or tomatoes or even fruits, strawberries, peaches, things like that are really, really soft, it will slice without smushing. So think about slicing tomatoes like for a hamburger bar, you're gonna get really nice slices without it smushing. All the way to a hard vegetable, which is what I'm gonna do today. I'm gonna do a sweet potato. And many times slicers, whether it's a mandolin or a wedger or some sort, just can't handle a sweet potato because it's so hard, but this guy can do it. So let's start with the sweet potato. And the way this works is you put your food through the chute. It does have a little protective pusher so that when you're getting towards the blade, you don't use your fingers. And then all you're doing is pumping this handle, which is moving the blade. So instead of you moving your hand and food across the blade, your hands are away and you're pumping like this. So I'm gonna do, now you could do this any number of ways, but I'm gonna do this as just to show you it's a great fry cutter. So if you have an air fryer or you like to do your own homemade French fries, this tool will make the perfect French fries. So, and the other reason I'm using that cutting is sweet potatoes are harder. They take a little longer to cook. So compared to the other vegetables, I probably want it a little bit smaller so that it will be cooked when the meat is cooked. So I have my sweet potato in here and I have it set for there's a setting for the perfect French fry. And you just pump your handle like so. And you notice it's really pretty effortless. And I'm getting close to the blade, so at this point, that's where I'm gonna go ahead and use the guard. And look at that. Those are like, look at that, like perfect French fries. So again, into the air fryer, roast them on a pan like we're doing, and it's just gonna be really, really good with this meal. So I'm gonna put those into a bowl because we're gonna actually toss our vegetables with some oil and that rosemary herb seasoning as well. We're gonna do a little bit of onion. Again, you can do any kind you want. I just had a little piece of a red onion, so we're gonna go ahead and do that. I wish I had a little bit more onion, but we're gonna go with what we got. That's the beauty of these sheet pan meals. You just go with what you got and it'll be just fine. And with this onion, I'm gonna go kind of a thicker slice. So I've turned the dial to the slice setting and I've gone with a 6. So on the settings, it goes from a 1 to an 8. 1 is shaved. So like if you really wanted these like super thin, or I think about potatoes sliced really thin if you want to do your homemade potato chips, or an apple that you sliced really thin to dehydrate, all the way to the 8, which is a little bit bigger than 1/4 of an inch. And that's gonna be, you know, again, if you just want a thicker cut or you're doing a casserole or something. So got my onion in there. And again, probably not enough for this meal, but it's great. But there you go. There are, think about, there's, you know, nice onion. If you're doing slices for a burger or something for this particular recipe, I'm just gonna kind of open up those rings and they're gonna mix in with our vegetables. And we're gonna do some pepper. Just to keep things consistent, I'm gonna do just a little bit thinner because really, you know, you want everything cut about the same thickness, or adjust it for, you know, whether it's a vegetable that cooks fast or cooks slow, because the whole idea is you want everything coming out together at the very end. So I'm gonna do a couple slices of pepper in here and have those lined up so they're gonna slice nicely. But look at that. Again, they're all sliced the same, they're all the same size, they're gonna cook the same, which is exactly what you're looking for when you're doing this. And actually, that's about as much, you know, again, pepper, I kind of want it to match the onion. Maybe I'm just gonna do one more piece. So put that in there. And there's the rest of our onion. And then the recipe does not call for it, that basic recipe that I'm sharing in the party, but it's fall and I think of apples, and I love sweet potatoes and apples together. There's just something about that flavor that just is really yummy for me. And we're gonna go ahead and do apples. I'm gonna leave it about the same slice, that same number 6. Gonna put my apples in there and slice. And look at this. Like perfectly sliced apples. And again, everything is sliced the same thickness because I kind of want it all to cook the same, except for those sweet potatoes. They're gonna take a little bit longer. So let me just put the last 2 pieces of apple, and I'm putting a lot of apple in here just because I like it. Okay, there's our apples. So we have all of those delicious vegetables in here. I'm putting them in a bowl, and to this bowl I'm going to add a little bit more olive oil, and again, that's going to kind of help get the seasoning to stick. It's also going to kind of make them a little bit crispier. Love this little this is the oil and vinegar dispenser. Has a little measure marking on here in terms of, you know, if you needed to measure your olive oil or your vinegar. I'm not really measuring, but I just want to show you how this works. Just give a little squeeze here, and I hope you guys can see how it just pulls up that oil, and that's about a tablespoon, which is what I want. We're just going to add that to our mix here. And even though there's fruit in here and you think that's weird to salt and pepper it, there are vegetables in there. So I'm going to just add a little bit of salt, a little bit of pepper. And then, as I said, I'm going to go ahead and add the rosemary seasoning. And even though there's apples and it's sweet, this is just such a great fall flavor, and you're gonna get the little sweetness of the apple, you're gonna get the savory of the vegetables, and it's really, really pretty with all the different colors that we have. So I'm just gonna give this a little bit of a stir to mix that up. And then we're gonna just put this around the pork roast. And then the whole thing goes in the oven. We're gonna do about 375 degrees, gonna take about 30 minutes, and dinner is done. So once you've done this little bit of work, and really, was it work? No. Once you've done this, put it in the oven, go about your, go do whatever else you need to do. If you wanna, sit down and have a glass of wine, or you need to help kids with homework, or whatever your day might look like. But you've got your vegetables, you got your potatoes, you got your meat, you got everything in here. But isn't that pretty? I mean, look at the colors. Okay, so we're gonna just take this and just put it all the way around. And again, not only is this, good for cooking and, getting one pan meal, it's also protecting your stoneware so that you're not gonna get breakage, that you got food all the way around. And it's okay if it touches the pork. All those flavors are gonna marry up. Okay, oh, this looks so pretty. Oh, I'm so hungry, I can't wait. So here we go. There is our sheet pan meal. Delicious, ready to go in the oven. I'm gonna pop that in the oven. Dinner will be done in about 30 minutes. And hope you like this idea. I hope that it brought it to life for you. And I hope it's something that you'll share with your family. Happy cooking.